She didn't drift away slowly. She didn't warn you. One week she was consistent, warm, responsive, almost predictable. The next week she turned cold, like someone shut off the lights without paying the bill. Short replies, delayed responses. A subtle emotional frost that makes men stare at their phones like medieval peasants waiting for a sign from God. If you've ever asked yourself, what the hell just happened? Good. That question means you're standing at the edge of a pattern most men never learn to read. Before we go any further, handle two things. If you want coaching, the link is in the description and pinned comment. That's where confusion goes to die. And our latest Patreon video is called How Women Decide You're Emotionally Handled. If you've ever felt a woman go from intrigued to casually indifferent while still being polite, that video explains the exact moment she categorized you. Now let's dissect the coldness. Women do not suddenly go cold. Sudden is how it feels to men, because men confuse consistency with security. Women confuse consistency with information. When she's consistent, she's not settling in. She's observing. She's collecting data. And when the data tells her she understands you well enough, the temperature changes. Coldness is not always rejection. Sometimes it's resolution. Men think attraction is built through momentum. More texts, more time, more availability. Women experience attraction through contrast. When everything becomes known, predictable, and emotionally accessible, tension evaporates. And tension is the fuel. Consistency without depth turns into background noise. Consistency with emotional leakage turns into boredom. Here's where simps lose the plot. They assume her consistency means progress. They relax. They overinvest. They reveal too much, too fast, too eagerly. They stop being a question mark and become a paragraph. Once she can summarize you, she no longer needs to read you. So she goes cold. What she feels in that moment is not cruelty. It's clarity. She's no longer curious about how you'll react. She knows. And knowing kills fascination. A man who reacts the same way every time, who is always available, always agreeable, always emotionally present, becomes emotionally handled, not owned, managed. There's a quiet ruthlessness to this that men refuse to accept. Women are not loyal to consistency. They are loyal to emotional engagement. If consistency reveals weakness, neediness, or a lack of internal gravity, it doesn't buy you safety. It disqualifies you. When she goes cold after being consistent, what she's really doing is stepping back to see what happens next. Will you panic? Will you chase? Will you demand explanations? Will you perform emotional CPR on something that isn't dead, just withdrawn? Most men answer yes to all of the above. And in doing so, they confirm her decision. There's research that supports this dynamic without dressing it up in romantic language. A study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships found that perceived overdependence and excessive responsiveness in early relational stages significantly reduced attraction over time, especially when one partner felt the other's emotional availability was disproportionate. Translation: when you give too much too consistently, it doesn't deepen attraction, it collapses it. Women feel smothered long before men realize they're crowding the room. The coldness is often a response to emotional predictability. When she knows you'll always respond, always reassure, always show up, she stops feeling chosen and starts feeling accommodated. Desire doesn't live in accommodation. Desire lives in polarity, in uncertainty, in the sense that access must be earned and maintained. Strong women, the ones who can play men without breaking a sweat, understand this instinctively. They pull back not to punish, but to rebalance. They want to see if you have a life, a spine, a direction that doesn't bend around their moods. If you crumble, they lose respect. If you remain steady, something interesting happens. But most men never get there because they misinterpret the coldness as a problem to solve, rather than a message to read. Let's talk about the emotional experience on her side. When she goes cold, she often feels relief first. Relief from managing your expectations. Relief from carrying your emotional momentum. Relief from being the center of your attention. That relief can turn into guilt, which is why some women stay polite, responsive, even friendly, while remaining emotionally distant. Men mistake politeness for hope and dig themselves deeper. Then comes curiosity, not about you as a person, but about your reaction. Will he implode, or will he hold his frame? The reaction is the final exam. You don't pass it by asking questions. You pass it by not changing who you are. Here's the dark humor. Men complain about women being hot and cold, while behaving like thermostats set entirely by female attention. When she's warm, they're alive. When she's cold, they freeze. That dependency is what women feel before they pull away. The coldness is often a response to sensing that they matter too much. Nothing kills attraction faster than being needed for emotional regulation. This doesn't mean women want emotional absence. They want emotional competence. They want a man whose internal climate doesn't fluctuate based on their texts. Consistency from a centered man feels grounding. Consistency from an anxious man feels heavy. So when women go cold after being consistent, it's usually because consistency revealed something they didn't like. Not a flaw, a pattern, neediness, overinvestment, a lack of mystery, a hunger that feels bottomless. Men love to say, "She switched up for no reason." That's comforting because it preserves the ego. The truth is harsher and more useful. She learned enough to decide. And yes, sometimes the decision is simply that the chemistry wasn't there. But even then, the coldness serves a function. It creates distance without confrontation. Women are social tacticians. They prefer fade-outs to explosions. Coldness is clean. It avoids drama. Men who chase it turn a quiet exit into a spectacle. What should you do when this happens? First, understand that chasing warmth never restores it. Warmth given under pressure is obligation, not desire. When she goes cold, your job is not to reignite the fire. It's to see whether there was ever real fuel to begin with. The men who recover from this don't send long messages. They don't ask for closure. They don't explain their value like a resume. They return to their baseline. They let silence do its work. Silence forces her to sit with her decision instead of feeding off your reaction. Sometimes she comes back warmer. Sometimes she disappears. Both outcomes tell you the truth. Homework, because awareness without discipline is just voyeurism. For the next 30 days, observe how you respond when someone pulls back. Not just women, anyone. Notice the urge to fix, chase, explain, or seek reassurance. That urge is the same one that makes women go cold. Practice not acting on it. Let gaps exist. Let unanswered messages sit. Watch how often things resolve themselves without your interference. Also, audit your consistency. Are you consistent because you're grounded, or because you're afraid to lose access? Those two look identical on the surface, and completely different underneath. Only one is attractive. If you like this video, subscribe. Not because you're loyal, but because you recognize patterns when they're finally named. And comment below with this. When a woman went cold on you, did you chase or did you hold your ground? And what happened after? Welcome to the dark side of your mind, an armory disguised as advice. Everything here exists to give you clarity sharper than the games being played against you. The reading is where I dissect your situation with precision. What he meant, what he didn't, what you missed. About 1,000 words, plus one follow-up question to tighten the strategy. The case file is the full autopsy, a complete psychological breakdown in writing, plus a private audio message so you hear the parts most people avoid. One follow-up to lock it in. If you want speed, there's the whisper. 400 words. Direct. Unfiltered. No extra dialogue. If you prefer tone and voice, the weight of the message itself, the transmission gives you a private audio response. No follow-up. No hand-holding. And if your situation is messy enough for multiple angles, buy 2 services, and the third is free. Strategy rewards commitment. If you want the truth delivered publicly, without exposing yourself, there's the public whisper. One question, one strategic answer, posted for others to learn from. Short, clean, no follow-up. You already know why you're here. You ask your question, and within 72 hours, you get clarity most people never develop. Emotional discipline, psychological leverage, the ability to stop repeating patterns that drain you. The dark side of your mind isn't here to soothe you. It's here to change how you move.